What do you think of couples with an age gap of 10 plus years? Write in the comments what you think about it. Enjoy the show. Story 1. At my school, a girl ran away with her best friend's dad on her 16th birthday. Everyone was sure something was going on before that. They moved away for a while. They're still together. She will be about 42 and him probably 70. It's weird seeing them together as she is an attractive girl and even now keeps herself looking and dressing well. He's a fat old dude who looks like a vagrant. He also has never been able to go out much as he gets for what he done. Feel sorry for their kids. Story 2. I love how accepted on Reddit is to claim that all men become some terrible, exploitative monsters with age, when in reality most men who date younger women just want to have some fun together. Most of my friends are female and the worst shit that happened to them was always caused by dudes their age. Persuaded to keep an unwanted pregnancy? Yep, by a guy her age. Beaten to a bloody pulp? Yep, by a guy her age. Persuaded to take a mortgage they couldn't afford? Yep, by a guy her age. Persuade to drop out from a college? Yep, by a guy her age. The biggest offense done by guys that were older than them was that we could see from a mile that they were less serious than the girl. Story 3. Most age gap relationships don't work out, but most relationships with any age gap don't work out to begin with. So as long as both partners are legally consenting adults and their relationship is overall healthy and beneficial for both of them, then their relationships are their own choices. But I do agree on what I consider to be the golden rule of age gap relationships. The younger partner must initiate a romantic connection first. The older partner should always be platonic towards significantly younger adults. Story 4. When you're of legal age to consent, some do still HD a stigma towards it. My partners have always been older. My now ex is 15 years older anatomically but emotionally, and me, Tally, he's a fucking toddler. So it's all stereotyping, categorizing what we need to consciously try to relate to understand. Most times we are half-baked and half-cooked in our perceptual reasoning. So yeah, if an adult is with a child, that indeed pedophilia, but if a younger adult is with an older adult, you can pretty much guarantee the older adult is immature to be able to relate to the younger one. Story 5. My sister is married to someone my parents' age. In her 20s, she was living the high life, getting to travel and do things myself and other siblings couldn't afford to do. He has a daughter 2 years younger. I always found that disturbing. She basically gave up her 20s to do older adult things. She quit her job to be his housewife. Thankfully, no kids. He had been there, done that. Now he's retired. They have some money, but she is pretty much stuck being his caretaker, and his health issues are draining the cash she thought she would eventually inherit. He's aged significantly in the last few years, but she's stuck. She signed a prenup. She hasn't worked in well over a decade. She's so unhappy. She worries his kids will kick her to the curb when he dies. She never fully maintained a relationship with them. The oldest daughter went no contact mostly or won't see her father with her around. It's really sad, but of course when she was 24, we just didn't understand when we tried to show her all the red flags. Story 6. As long as the younger party was at age of consent when they first met. Weirds me out if a 20-yo is dating a 30-yo, but they've known each other or have been friends since they were 13 and 23, 14 and 24, and so on. I'm sorry, but anybody in their 20s being friends with somebody underage, then immediately dating them as soon as they hit the age of consent is suspicious. But if a 18-yo wants to meet a 28-yo on a dating app or at a bar, go for it. Story 7. I've always wondered what they had in common. An example, I was 10 when she was born. I was 20 and in the Marine Corps. She was in 5th grade. I was 30 and had been to 12 countries, had finished uni and was a career firefighter. She was a college sophomore. I retired at 59 after 30 years on the job. I worked 3 more years until I could collect Social Security and my National Guard pension. She'll have 13 more years to go before retiring. After my retirement, I alternate visiting friends in Sydney, Australia and Manchester, United Kingdom. I go see Bill and Corey in Sydney, and Chris come visit me. The next summer, Bill and Corey come to Phoenix, and I go to Manchester. How is she going to take 30, 45 days PTO just for that, then take another 21, 28 days to visit family and friends here in the U.S.? If a couple can make it work, good on them. Wifey and are 2 years apart, and sometimes that seems like a lot. Story 8. As long as they are consenting adults who enjoy each other's company and are in a relationship that works for them, that's all that matters. Anybody judging a couple on a single neutral factor like age gap is projecting their own biases. A guy-gal at 50 can still be in excellent shape, charming, sociable, and sexually active. If there's nothing gross about him or her having sex with a 45-year-old, then there's nothing gross about him or her having sex with any consenting adult from 18 to 80. It's the same sex acts we all participate in. Doggy style doesn't suddenly become gross just because your partner is 65 instead of 25, nor does it become less enjoyable. Getting dicked by a fit 50-year-old is still going to be better than being dicked by a 25-year-old loser with no stamina living in his parents' basement. The dates and conversations are probably going to be better too. Basing your judgment on something like age gap is like insisting everyone with a tattoo is a gang member and shouldn't be allowed to mix with normal people. You have literally no personal knowledge if their life but one fact, and are determined to judge them on a situation you literally know nothing about. Story 9. I think it's a bit weird because people 10 years older than me seem too old to be sexy, and people 10 years younger than me seem too young to be sexy, but also I stopped worrying about who everyone else loves. I also think it's weird to be in a relationship with a woman, but most men and many women do that too. As long as it's consensual and nobody is dishonestly taking advantage of the other, it's really none of my business. Story 10. If they're both of drinking age, it doesn't bother me unless they're like 15 years or more apart. At that point, it's basically a whole generation difference. A 28-plus-year-old dating a fresh 18-year-old is pretty yucky, even if it's legal. Once you hit like 60, anyone older than you is fair game. A 97-year-old dating/marrying a 60-year-old doesn't bother me in the slightest, even though they're nearly 40 years apart. Story 11. Like most things in life, this depends on context, the situation, and the individuals involved, much more than the actual ages involved in my opinion. Like most things on Reddit, this question gets answered by a bunch of insufferable, judgmental people who see the world in black and white and try to fill their own void of importance in the real world by pretending to be some kind of online enforcer of morale ruling. Story 12 depends on how they met. I've been on dating sites and have been confronted with guys who were specifically looking for women 10, 25 years younger than they were, because they all shared the Delulu idea that they were the exception. They were that one guy who was actually a lot younger than his age showed. Spoiler alert, they weren't. If people meet organically and are both above 30, it doesn't matter much anymore. But older men that specifically seek out younger women give me the creeps. Story 13. If there's love, legally consenting reciprocacy, and a true connection, do it up. I'd always encourage people to partner/date/marry for genuine compatibility, shared values, and mutual growth above literally any other dynamic. Just be legal, be honest, and find a person or persons who will let you reach a state of authentic, peaceful vulnerability to nurture your purest selves. Story 14. 10 years will always be 10 years. I think the advice that you won't notice it when older is dishonest. You'll always be on different steps of life, and you should factor it in, i.e. 29 and 39. 29-year-old is starting to acquire assets, while 39 is well established and probably has wealth or teenage children, or 50 and 60. 50 is still active and working with children in school, while 60 is at retirement age, lifestyle diseases, and an empty nester. Story 15. As a mid-age couple, fine. But ask my grandma how she felt when she had to spend her early retirement years taking care of an Alzheimer patient when he was 81 and she was 67 and wanted to go out and travel. And then he died and she old with health problems and spent her upper 70s sick and alone. People don't often consider the upper age end of the spectrum. Story 16. I think that it's appropriate for most individuals in their mid-ish 20s and up, as long as they have the emotional maturity and insight. A lot of age gap relationships come with the same issues as any other relationship. I regret the AGRs I had when I was from 19, 22, but I learned a lot about how to handle adult relationships. My last serious relationship was when I was 24 and he was 56. Now I'm 26, and my current partner is 52, but he looks 45. I get some raised eyebrows from people, but hell, it's my life. Story 17. I like to think that we could all intuitively understand that each age is different and what qualifies for an acceptable age gap changes throughout the years. 45 to 55, no biggie. 32 to 22, that's just weird. 26 to 16, downright criminal. But unfortunately, it seems that this common sense is not as common as I thought, with many seemingly either oblivious to it or straight up refusing to accept it. Especially the people who make a point of pointing out age of consent or when you're considered an adult are very weird, and I think we all know what it is they're not saying. But putting criminal or immoral or just weird cases aside, generally speaking, age gaps don't make much of a difference in middle age, but they do play a role later in life. It's not like being the same age as your partner guarantees anything, but having a big age gap all but confirms that the younger one is very likely to find themselves alone in later years, after taking care of someone who's slowly losing their faculties while they still have some good years left in them. I've only observed what it's like to be alone in your last years, and it's not pretty, something I hope I don't experience myself. You may not think it's not important now, but when you're in your 60s or 70s and your partner dies and you're left alone for the next May 10th, 20 years, it's not nice at all. Story 18. I actually finished university when one of my ex was born. Then again, most women in my life have been quite younger than I, and it worked great. An average of 3 to 5 year relationship is not bad in my case, BTW. They were all university educated and probably more mature than I. One was 3 months older than my oldest. She looked and had work experience that made me assume she was in her 30s. She was 23 and I was turning 50. I do admit that I'm lucky when it comes to appearance. No white hair except in my beard at the age of 58, and quite youthful in my everyday life activities and discussions. Story 19. I think it's gross. The first relationship I was in, I was 20, the guy was 30. He had severe epilepsy, which basically made him have the mentality of a horny teenager going through puberty. At first, he was a gentleman to me when we first met, but after 3 months, it all turned out to be a charade. He was emotionally unstable and mentally abusive as hell, making me cry almost every day, showing up uninvited to my home every day, putting me down and trying to force me to have sex with him when I told him I wasn't ready at all. I broke up with him not even at the 6-month mark because I had enough of him being abusive. He was also very bitter because he wanted to join the Marines but couldn't due to having severe epilepsy. I'm 36 now and married to a man who's 14 months older than me. He treats me like a queen and is very good to me. My ex is almost 50 and still lives with his mother, constantly going online, making profiles and begging random girls to date him. Story 20. It poses a lot of questions if you're 18 and they're almost 30. Like some of them are parental and will take away innocent coming-of-age experiences with disappointment and expectations of someone their age, or encourage or condone to the extreme of behaviors you're supposed to live through and sort during these ages. Living through other people in any way is devastating to your personality. I almost went down that road. I mean, like even a 5-year age gap can be rough. It's like an intern dating and attending IMO. I would wait on these relationships until you've built enough experiences of your own, formed your identity and self-esteem. Wait until your late 20s. Story 21. One of my best friends who I had mutual feelings for dated a 46-year-old when she was 20. Dude was her theater director, not at school, and was definitely preying on her and taking advantage of her, but she was young and naive. It has a happy ending, though, because she dumped the idiot a year later and wised up, and the two of us dated briefly afterwards, but now we are better off as friends. She's still one of my closest friends, and I'm so proud of her for having the strength to break out of that relationship. So I'm biased against it, but like a lot of people are saying, the closer one of them is to 18, the worse it is. Story 22 depends on the ages we are talking. My dad is 74 this year and married to a woman who is 62 this year. They married about 10 years ago after about 3 years of dating. I don't see any problems here. They are both happy and enjoy a similar active lifestyle, and are at similar stages of life, both enjoying the later stages of life. However, I also know someone who is 36 and dating someone who is 25. This one feels a lot more awkward to me. The difference in adult experience leads the younger more easily taken advantage of and abused. Not to excuse it necessarily, but in this case, I have never seen anything indicating towards abuse. Both work and bring in similar incomes. Both are talking about wanting to start a family. This one, to me, while on the fence of uncomfortable, also can just be two people who arrived at similar maturity and life goals at different ages. I think big age gaps can often lead to unbalanced relationships, but I don't think it is always the outcome and can depend on the actual people involved. Story 23. If either one of them are below 30, it looks bad. If the woman is the younger one, then it looks like he's trying to take advantage of the fact that she doesn't have as much life experience. AKA girls his age know better. LOL. Somehow when the woman is older, nobody thinks she's going after a guy because she wants to manipulate and trap him, which is interesting to think about. Story 24. It can work, and it can also be very problematic if there's manipulation or a power difference involved. Personally, we have a 16-year gap, but we've been together 27 years, the first 3 long distance, and married 23. She said she wasn't going to get married until she had her MBA and her first post-degree job. She kept her last name and has been otherwise mainly self-reliant. I helped clear her education debt, very intentionally not dependent on me or on my income. My age was less of an issue than our religious differences, and even that wasn't too hard to come to an understanding about. We are very careful to split the work of the household and of raising our 2 kids, and I'm the primary at-home parent since I can work from home most of the time. Has it always been smooth sailing? Not at all. But with mutual respect, love, grace, and curiosity, we have learned we can work through anything, but the same is true of same-age relationships. Will I die before she does? The actuaries would say yes, but our attitude is, every day we share is a blessing, and we never know when it's our last day anyway. Story 25. As long as everyone involved is a consenting adult, it's up to them, and it's definitely not my business to get into the business of people I can't even begin to pretend to know or understand, to judge them. This is also the case with everyone who posted their critical thoughts here. It frankly brings back unfortunate similarities to the judgment of other people's relationships based on differences in sexual orientation, class, or ethnicity. I'd hate to be happy with someone and have to regularly deal with harassment from condemnatory people who think I'm suffering because of some preconceived notions about my relationship that lives only in their heads. Story 26. I'll cut to the chase and say, I think it is okay for 18-year-olds to fuck whoever they want. If you can vote, pay taxes, and join the army, you can decide what to do with your privates. I feel like it is wrong to put conditions on adulthood because they make you uncomfortable, because it involves sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It just doesn't work that way. You are either a child or an adult. People often say if they see someone older who has sex with an 18-year-old is a pervert. But I feel like it is some Puritan thing where people are trying to look pious or whatever. Do you see a retail store that hires an 18-year-old as doing something immoral along the lines of exploiting child labor? How can you let an 18-year-old drive a car if they are children? If you genuinely think people at 18 aren't adults, then we should raise the legal age to 21 or something. But then they should still get the legal protections children get. If not, then they are adults. And you need to consider why you think sex with whoever they want is not a decision they can make, but joining the army is. Story 27 depends how old they were. At my age, 30, it would be odd if I dated a 20-year-old, but not odd if I dated a 40-year-old because we'd likely be in similar parts of life, career, mortgage, not going out every night, emotionally stable usually, etc. But if I dated a 50-year-old, that would be weird. What do I have in common with someone with grandchildren? I don't find it odd that my grandpa, 82, married a woman 10 years younger than him 7-ish years ago. They're both widowers, both have grown grandchildren, both love antiquing, etc. They're in the same space. The world isn't black and white. It depends on where people are in life, how old they are, what the actual age gap is, etc. I've been struggling with this internal thought process myself because it seems that turning 30 flipped something, and almost everyone interested in me in the last almost year have been 22, 27. So out of those ages, what is the actual age that's too young? To me, it feels like almost that entire age grouping, just because of what I've already gone through. Had a kid at 18, had a mortgage at 27, have experienced a lot. It feels like our life experience and stability is so vastly different. I've been distancing myself from a 23-year-old that is in my friend group, and I had a one-night stand with, and admittedly he told me he was 27 at first, because it just feels scummy despite having a major crush on him, and admittedly always laughing when he's around. He's fucking hilarious. But it feels wrong. Like every 30-year-old who dated me from 18, 22 including my ex who just turned 40, who I dated starting at 22 for a little over 5 years, and became incredibly abusive, especially when I broke up with him during COVID and refused to leave for 2 years after. I've been single for 4 years because of that experience. I think he did deliberately go after me because I was so much younger than him. Word vomited a bit, but it's a nuanced topic that I don't know the perfect answer to. Story 28 really depends on the ages of the people when they got together. A 30-year-old and a 40-year-old is fine. A 30-year-old and a 50-year-old is fine. A 16-year-old and a 25-year-old would be concerning to me. Essentially, if they're both established adults over the age of like 30, I don't care. If a 35-year-old wants to get together with a 60-year-old, whatever, they are both adults who can make that decision. But if one of the people in question is underage or they're just out of high school, I'm going to have some questions. Story 29 depends on the couple and also the age in which they met. If you met him or her at 14 and they were 27 and then got together at 18, you were groomed. Depending on the person and the intention, even 20 dating a 30-year-old can be a power imbalance that is intentionally set up for the older person to have influence and control over the young person. However, I have a best friend who is 11 years old younger than me, and while it's not romantic, I can see someone having a genuine connection with a younger person. After 30, the 10 years age difference is fairly insignificant, emo. Story 30. As a male who has always dated older women simply because I used to think it meant they were more mature and ready, but damn was wrong, and I mean being 15 and dating a 18-year-old kind of thing, but nope. Women are just nuts no matter the age. But for example, when I was 19, I dated a girl same age as me, almost a year, and she was cuckoo crazy, like bonkers, man. I always had that itch of needing to be in a relationship, been through so many, and then after her, at I think 21, I decided to hook up with this friend of my friend's brother. And this woman was about 41, I think. And it definitely felt good and all and was great, but I could still see a sense of immaturity in her. And that's when it hit me and I was like, it doesn't matter the age. They'll all have something wrong with them. Same as me and anybody else. You just deal with it. Now I'm with my fiance. She's 34 and I'm 24. Though she can sometimes be a huge pain in the ass. Everyone, even people who don't know us, said they wouldn't think there's an age gap at all. She looks young and I look mature, so it makes me look older. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it, be sure to write comments and share your stories.